Hi, I'm Coach Michael BURT. To get a free copy of my book, Inside the Mind of a Monster, text 678-506-7543. Text to get a copy of my book, Inside the Mind of a Monster, and I'm going to turn you into a legendary creature. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everybody so there's no background noise. And we're going to have a great day. If you want to ask any question at any time, you can unmute yourself, and we will be happy to take any questions. My name is Coach Michael BURT, and I had planned my plan was to be with you, actually speaking to you in person today. I love the live events. I'm a former championship women's basketball coach, and I love being in the room with you, but this is the next best option. So I'm excited about being with you. And we're going to tackle a concept about how to activate the drive, what we call the pray drive in a person. Now, I was raised by a single mother who had me when she was 16 years old. And I watched that woman scratch and claw for everything we had. And she was a nurse. And many times she would work 2 and 3 jobs. And when she was working her second job, she would take me down to the local baseball field where I played baseball. And I had a female baseball coach named Mickey Vinson. And Mickey Vinson was this woman who tended to me, cared for me, fed me. And she would say to me as early as 6 years old, son, one of these days, you're going to be a great coach. And I heard that throughout my whole life. One of these days, you're going to be a great coach. One of these days, you're going to be a great coach. And that implanted something in me. And I want to make a point here, because if you're going to do something big in the world, there is a cycle that you have to go through to do big things in the world. And the cycle really begins with, first you have some big revelation. If you study the word revelation, it's dramatic moment. It's a dramatic moment in your life that opens your eyes to something. Mine happened at 6 years old. Because of the revelation, you then have conviction, which is this deep-seated internal belief that you can and will do something big in the world. That conviction leads to action. Okay. And once you've gone through the cycle of revelation, conviction, action, you will take the necessary steps it takes to be successful. Okay. Now, I was just coaching about 100 real estate agents in Alabama right before this. And one of the number one things that my team has seen during this period of this virus has been people being lost. People have been confused. People have gotten out of a routine. People have gotten out of a rhythm. People, it's almost like they're just scared to do anything. And I would tell you, as a coach, action cures most fear. Fear is an emotion created by a belief that something's going to harm us in the future. Notice what I said. It's an emotion. It's a negative emotion created by a belief. Where did the belief come from? Typically something in our past. What does it create? A feeling of something going to harm me where? In the future. Fear creates stress. Stress creates worry. Worry creates dis-ease. The number one killer of people in the United States is dis-ease, stress. 1,000 people die of heart disease every single day. Now, when you think about this, I want you to think about your cycle. Revelation, conviction, action. So at 15 years old, I started coaching because of a phone call. And I believe part of reaching a person's potential is seeing the good in them when it's easy to see the bad. It's affirming and validating the worth and potential in another person in so clear a way they begin to see it in their own self. So at 15 years old, I get a phone call from a local basketball coach, and he says, I want you to help me coach this junior pro basketball team. He said, I don't know anything about basketball. Will you help me? And I said, sure. So I went down there in a suit. I looked like a little Pat Riley coaching junior pro basketball, and I was so passionate, and I had so much energy, and I like to joke and say I even got ejected from a junior pro basketball game because I couldn't control my emotions. Okay? Now, but I was turned on to something by somebody. Now, when you're recruiting a person, tell me that one of the number one things you're not looking for is a high drive, a big engine, ability to take something and see it through to its logical conclusion. Okay, we're going to refer to that today as pray drive. And I'm actually working on an assessment, a pray drive assessment that measures how much drive a person has. How much get up and go do they have? How much fight do they have in them? Will they show up every day and see something through to its logical conclusion? Well, at 15 years old, the minute I started coaching, I knew this is what I'm supposed to do. And it brought my second revelation. There is a difference between an occupation and a vocation. An occupation is that which occupies your time in which you receive a paycheck for. In essence, you're trading your time and energy and talents for money. There's little or no heart involved. There's little or no mind involved. There's little or no spirit involved. You're there physically, but you're not there with your most important parts. It is an occupation. It is occupying your time. Now, out of the 16 books that I've written, I wish I would have written this book. It's a book called I Quit, but I forgot to tell anybody. These are people that dress up, paint up, spray up, pretty up, go to work, but guess what? They ain't at work. Okay? They look good on the surface, but they don't follow through. They don't show up like they should. They don't have the prey drive they need. Okay? So at 15 years old, I want to be a coach for a living. I want a vocation. Vocation comes from the Latin term voice or calling in life. There's a big difference between helping a person find a vocation and helping a person find a job. Okay. Now, how many of you have read the book, Start With Why or Find Your Why? Anybody read that book? All right. Now, most people, there's a very popular book out there called Find Your Why. And I've coached people for 28 years, and I actually philosophically disagree with the concept because I actually believe you find your purpose when you pursue something. In essence, many times your purpose finds you, and it finds you through doing. So when I was 16, I pumped gas. I was the worst gas pumper in America. When I was 18, I was a bank teller. I was the worst bank teller in America. You know why? Because my voice and calling in life was coaching people. And once I found my voice and once I distributed my talents through my work, I actually believe work can be the distribution channel for your talents. And the higher you distribute your talents to the world through your work, the more love, the more appreciation, the more referrals, the more affirmation, the more money you make. Work can be a distribution channel for talent. I also have a belief if you take man's ability away to work, he can become destructive. Now, what have we seen during this period that people couldn't work? We've seen alcohol sales go up 55%. We've seen suicide rates go through the roof. We've seen domestic violence go up. When you take away a person's ability to work and distribute their talents, people can become destructive. Okay? Work is a good thing. Okay? Helping people find their work, helping people find great people is a valuable thing in the world that you do. So when you think about it, around 18 years old, I decided I'm going to go get my first job. I want to be a basketball coach. So I was going to college at Middle Tennessee State University, and I went down to apply for my first basketball coaching job at Woodbury Grammar Elementary School. And I showed up and I said, I'd like to be the head boys basketball coach of this school. And they laughed at me. And the principal said, you're just a kid. You're only 18 years old. And I saw a stat. This is a very important stat. It's a sales stat. It said that most sales happen between 7 and 15 touches. In essence, you have to go 7 to 15 times to make a sale. And so guess what I did, guys? I went back 14 straight days. And every day I showed up and the principal would show up and I'd say, hey, I'm Coach Burt. Remember me? I'd like to be the head boys basketball coach. And every day he gave me an objection. Objection is opposition of thought. You're too young. Insurance will never pay for it. It'll never work. And finally on day 14, he said, look, kid, you got the job. Primarily because nobody else wants this job. All right. So now I'm the head boys basketball coach at my first job. They paid me $199.50 for the year. Okay. So if any of your people complain about how much money they make, remember this. All right. But I want you to tell me, Diane Sanders, if you believe this. How many of you believe that every day at your current job is an interview for your next job? How many believe every day with your current job is an interview for mobility in a company? How many believe that people are watching, evaluating, critiquing? And that was my mindset at 18 is people are watching me. And if I perform well, I'm going to get an increased opportunity, right? If I do good with the little bit that I got right here and I become really good, then somebody else is going to want me. So at 19 years old, I get a phone call from Riverdale High School. It's the second largest high school in Tennessee at the time. And it was the head coach. And he said, I've heard about you. That's a referral. And he said, I heard you're this young little whippersnapper that can flat out coach. Will you come to Riverdale and be one of my assistant coaches? Now, remember, I'm only 19. I'm going to college at Middle Tennessee State University. I'm getting a degree in education to help them kids. And at 19 years old, he calls me and I asked the only question I knew to ask: how much money are you going to pay me? And I'm actually embarrassed to say I actually asked this question. I said, I'm already making $199.50. Like, you may not be able to afford me, right? And the guy said, we'll pay you $2,000. Now, here's a question I get asked all the time, and I'm sure you guys deal with this. If you had to speak to the 18 to 25-year-old and you had to give them any type of advice about work, what advice would you give them? And I'm going to write a book on this at some point, and it's going to be called Go for the Mentor Over the Money. You see, when you are mentored by a true professional, when you get to work side by side with someone who's operating at a high frequency, you get to listen to their thought patterns. You get to see how they sail. You get to see how they operate. You get to see how they attack. This apprenticeship sets you up to make the money that you want to make later. Too many young people go for the money over the mentor. This is a mistake. So when they're 30 years old, they're not prepared. They haven't worked the muscle. They don't have emotional intelligence. They don't know how to show up early to work. They don't know how to stay late. They don't know how to get a job done. Why? They've not been properly conditioned. They've not worked under the right people. So there's turnover. What are the stats telling us? The average 18 to 30-year-old is changing jobs 24 to 37 times in their life. Why? They get on a bus, they don't like it, they don't like the boss, they don't like the work, they quit. They get on another bus, they don't like the boss, they don't like the work, they quit. They get on a bus, they don't like, and that cycle just keeps going. What it really is they haven't been properly conditioned. Let me use another word. They haven't been properly groomed for success. And because they haven't been properly groomed, they fail. They fail. And when they fail, they get fired, or they get relocated, or they get freed up to chase their real passion. Okay. Now, so from 18 and 19, I'm learning, I'm studying. And here's what happened. This is one of the number one things that happened that would be applicable to you is I read a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, he talks about the whole person. This was back in 1994, 1995, Stephen Covey. And he says people are made up of 4 parts: a body, a mind, a heart, and a spirit. Each of those parts produce different needs, different intelligences, different capacities, different dimensions. Now, when I read that, I'm like, this is it. I'm going to go to work on growing the whole person. What good is it to have? How many of you guys have recruited a person that had high knowledge or lots of talent, but were lazy? I want you to think about that. They look good on paper. Maybe they had high IQ, which is the mind, but low EQ, which is the heart. How many of you have recruited a person that had a lot of drive, but they didn't have any skills? Right? How many of you have recruited a person that had knowledge and skill with no confidence, and that hurt them? Well, when I saw that model, I'm like, this is it. We need to go after people who have knowledge, skill, desire, and confidence. And a person that has knowledge, skill, desire, and confidence is going to be successful. A person that has very little knowledge, very little skill, very little desire, and very little confidence is not going to be successful. They're going to fail. And I guarantee if I looked at every person that you recruit, or every person that you help recruit, or every person that you work, I could diagnose very quickly where they're deficient. Is it knowledge? Is it skill? Is it desire? Is it confidence? Those are 4 parts of a person's nature. So I began coaching my high school basketball players. And imagine you having a daughter that played for me, and she's 14 years old, and she's learning the 7 habits of highly effective people, the principles of good to great, the 5 dysfunctions of team. She's learning how to show up 15 minutes early to everything, make eye contact, sit in the front 1/3 of her seat. She's learning emotional toughness and bounce back. Now, how employable do you think my players were when I got done coaching them after 4 years? These are people show up early, stay late, get the job done. They don't whine, they don't complain, they don't make excuses. These are winners. They know how to win because of who's coached them. So it's so funny that after I was coaching these players on this, one day a manager for Jim and Nick's Barbecue called me, and he said, "Are you Coach Burt?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "We interviewed 23 people to come work at our restaurant." He said one of those people showed up early, 15 minutes early. She was properly dressed. She walked in and made eye contact. She shook hands. She said, "Yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." She actually told us that she could teach the 7 habits of highly effective people to all the servers here at Jim and Nick's. And he says, your player was so far advanced than other 18-year-olds that we interviewed that we had to call you and tell you what a great job you did coaching these kids. Now, that's how you make a person employable. So when you think about it, from 18 to 25, I'm studying this model and I'm coaching the kids. At 21 years old, I became the head coach. 22 years old, I became the head coach at Riverdale. And I'm using the whole person theory. I'm teaching the 7 habits of highly effective people. I'm building a little greatness factory. I'm putting people through this cycle. And around 25 years old, people begin asking me, what are you doing with the kids? It's amazing what these kids, how they respond. So I don't have time to explain it. So I started writing books. And I started writing books, and guess who started to buy those books? People at State Farm Insurance and Dell Computers and National Healthcare and Vanderbilt University. And then people began saying, will you come over and coach and speak to our people? And I would go over and speak to their people. And then they would say, will you coach our people? Now, what I'm going to share with you today is really my research from 28 years of coaching people. And I'm going to show you how to diagnose the prey drive in a person. I'm going to show you where a person could be deficient, and these are things you need to know. Now, I don't know if you use personality profiles or not. We use the DISC. I am certified in the DISC profile. We are creating a certification on the prey drive. But I will tell you this. I hired an assistant once and recruited a person to come work for me, and my only criteria was that she worked out at 4:30 in the morning and she did CrossFit. And I told my wife, I said, surely to goodness, she's got to be tough. She gets up at 4:30 in the morning. She goes to the gym. I know that she's going to be tough enough to work with me every day. And then we did a DISC profile on her. And the DISC profile said that when you apply pressure to her, she becomes disorganized. And I caught myself going home one day and I told my wife, I said, man, I don't know what's wrong with this person. She's so disorganized and she gets flustered so easy and she's frustrated. And my wife said, what did her profile say? And I went back and looked at her profile, and guess what it said? When you add pressure, she becomes disorganized. Now, let me ask you a question. Who was at fault for hiring that person and putting her in that position? Was it her for taking the job or me for hiring her? See, I thought I could turn her into a superstar. I could coach anybody. The truth is that's not true. Her profile tells me exactly when she becomes frustrated, how she handles stress, all of those things. Okay, now, so for 25 to where I am today, 43 years old, I've been coaching people. We won a championship at Riverdale. You can go back and look at all of that. I've written now 16 books, put them out in the market, and we literally coach thousands of people every month. And I'm going to show you why it's so important to understand as a recruiter these things. Because if a person has a prey drive that is not activated, prey drive is prevalent in animals, specifically in dogs. If you have a dog, that dog has a prey drive, P-R-E-Y-D-R-I-V-E. And that drive is used to go get it, to capture prey, to bring it home. Okay, even sweet little dogs that you say, well, this dog would never hurt anybody. If that dog was trained by the right person and that prey drive was activated, you would not want to be alone in a room with that dog. Well, I'm studying this and I go, humans have a prey drive, but here's the problem. It's not been activated. And when I say it's not been activated, 67% of Americans admit that they go through the motions at their work. They do just enough not to get fired. Now, you tell me that their prey drive is activated in a person that 7 out of 10 says that, man, I just do just enough to get by. Right? If you were recruiting a person for me and they came to work in my environment and that was their mindset, I'm going to do just enough not to get fired, they wouldn't last 3 days. Okay? Because if they don't have that drive and want to go get it, they would never have the emotional toughness to work with a guy like me. They would never make the number of calls they need to make in a day. They would never survive because we have such a high expectation environment. I'm not looking for average people. I'm looking for Navy SEALs. Okay. I'm looking for the best of the best. I'm looking for people who walk in with batteries included and we make them better. Okay. Now, so when you think about this, if you understand prey drive, there are 3 components to the drive. How many of you have ever seen a person that you thought had so much talent, but were just lazy? Raise your hand if you know a person that they had all this talent, but they just didn't make it happen. You may say, well, I've got kids. I have people all the time come up to me and say, I've got a 25-year-old son. He's got all the talent in the world, but he just lacks something. What he lacks is the activation of his prey drive. Okay. So there are 3 components to activating a prey drive. Number 1, it has to be activated. And I'm going to show you I'm going to show you 5 ways that I use to activate the drive in a person. And I'm going to tell you a story about my own wife. At 24 years old, my wife came from West Tennessee. She grew up in a small town called Milan, Tennessee. She was not involved in sports. She was raised in a good Christian home where she had good parents that loved her and cared for her and took her to church every Sunday, but she had little or no direction on her potential. She didn't come from an athletic background like me, so she never got pushed. She never got challenged. Nobody ever told her she had potential. So when she came to college in Murfreesboro, Middle Tennessee, she basically just ran wild. She did drugs every single day from 21 to 24. No, she worked in a dead-end job that selling cell phones for Verizon that she hated. But nobody ever walked into her life and said, you have potential. You can become something. Okay. I didn't know her during this period. I was a basketball coach. I didn't even know who she was. At 30 years old, Verizon, her company, paid for her to come to one of my workshops on a book I wrote many years ago called This Ain't No Practice Life. And it was a 2-hour workshop on 7 big decisions I think you have to make to do something big in the world. And she sat in the back corner and she just took notes and notes and notes and notes. And she came up to me afterwards. She's like, can I meet with you? Okay, I've got to meet with you to talk about this. And she was real pretty. So I said, sure, I'm available right now. Would you like to meet right now and talk about it? And she said, no, I want to go back and I want to read this book. And then I want to come back and meet with you. 2 weeks later, she came back and the book was ripped up, highlighted. And here's what she said to me. She said, nobody has ever talked to me or told me any of these things. I've never read a personal development book. Nobody's ever said you've got potential. Nobody's ever said that you can become something in the world. I've just been floundering around, wasting time, wasting with people that's going nowhere. Can you help me? Now, I want to tell you what happened to her. She began getting involved in what we were doing. And I say she fell in love with her potential and I fell in love with her. And I like to remind her anytime that she's on me or fussing at me that for $50, she got a pretty good husband, right? Because that's all the workshop cost was $50. Now, here's my point. What happened to my wife? Guess what my wife is now doing? She's now writing her own books. She's now coaching women. She's now doing her own conferences. She's now managing millions of dollars of our real estate that we purchased. She's now getting up every day and going and working out. She's now running the health division of our company. That's the same country girl from West Tennessee that had no direction, no drive, no focus, no purpose, no anything. What happened to her? At 30 years old, her prey drive was activated. You have people out there in the world that nobody has ever paid attention to. And if they just had a good coach in their life and their prey drive was activated, they would want to do bigger things. They would show up at work harder. They would pursue better. They would want to become somebody. But it takes a special person to know how to activate this in people. So the first thing is it's got to be activated. Most companies that I have coached do not have a personal development program in place. They don't coach their employees. They don't know how to optimize the talent of the people. Like if you work with me, I meet with my team 3 times a day. I coach them all day, every day. They get personal development. They get exposed to some of the biggest thinkers in the world. There's no way you could work with me and not get better because you're in an environment of improvement. But lots of the companies I've coached do have no coaching in place. They have no development in place. They have no growth in place. They have no leadership development in place. So how does a person get better? How was my wife going to get better if her company didn't send her that workshop? She would have never gotten better, probably. She would have been 40 years old. She may have never read a personal development book. She may have never been interested in her potential. So the first step is it's got to be activated. The second step of prey drive is there has to be a persistence to it. And this is where people fall off the wagon. If Diane Sanders asked me today, or Mickey Trent asked me today, what's the number one thing you've seen as a coach that you've been most disappointed in during this virus? I'll tell you the biggest thing I've been disappointed in is how fast people would just give up. How fast people would just quit. How fast people would just throw the towel in. How fast people would just say there's just become hopeless. That's been very disheartening to me as a coach on how fast people will just throw their hands up. Some of the businesses in our city, within 2 days, listen to me when I say this, within 2 days of this virus, completely shut their doors. They didn't shut their doors for a couple of weeks. They closed their businesses. That's all the fight they had in them. One blow knocks them out. And what that tells me is they did not have a healthy immune system in their business. Now, I go to one of the #1 energy doctors in the world, Dr. Stephen Hotze in Houston, Texas. He has me on vitamins, minerals. He has all of my levels clicking what cylinder they should be clicking on. And here's the #1 thing he would teach, because he's seen 41,000. He's helped 41,000 people have this kind of energy. Here's the #1 thing he said: if you do not have a healthy immune system, you are susceptible to anything that comes along. If you have a healthy immune system, your immune system is strong enough to fight for you against viruses and all the things that happen to you every day. Well, I want you to think of this. A business has an immune system. And if the immune system is weak, you haven't been making calls. You haven't been prospecting. You haven't been following up. You haven't been engaging with customers. You haven't been working the pipeline. Anything that comes along, boom, crushes your business because your immune system is weak. Okay, we made 80 calls before the virus started, and we make 80 calls every day right now. Okay, the same things we were doing before the virus, we're doing right now, except we're doing more of it. So where most people fall off the wagon, Harriet and Nancy, is this: they don't have a persistence. Okay, one of my favorite Christian books is a book by a pastor called Long Obedience in the Same Direction. And that long obedience in the same direction, and that concept of I work the muscle, I show up every day. I don't know where the opportunity is, but I keep fighting. It's going to be a fight, but we're going to find a way to win. That concept of long obedience in the same direction is where most people lose their prey drive. They start, it's activated, and then they fall off the wagon. How many of you have helped hire a person or recruit a person that started great only to fizzle out very quickly? I want you to think about that. They started and they seemed like a rock star, and within as soon as they hit some adversity, soon as they didn't like one thing, soon as there was a problem, they literally just went downhill. They went downhill in their attitude. They went downhill in their performance. They went downhill in everything. Why? They don't have that persistence muscle. And this is a big thing most Americans are lacking. Third piece of prey drive is intensity. So I got activation, I've got persistence, and I've got intensity. Intensity is veracity of attack. You give me an assignment and I attack it. I'm self-initiated. I show up with those batteries included, right? I have creative excitement. I got good energy. I'm bringing something to the table every day. I'm not dragging around, waiting until told, low levels of initiative. Now, I want you to write these levels of initiative down, because this is very important, especially in what you do for a living. The lowest form of commitment is rebel or quit. And this is what most people do. They show up there physically, but they're not there. 67% of Americans say they're disengaged with their work. Okay? They've quit. Why do they keep showing up? Because they need the paycheck. So they show up physically, but now that you understand the whole person theory, guess where they don't show up? They don't show up in the heart. That's their prey drive. They don't show up in the mind. They're daydreaming, moonlighting, goofing off. They don't show up in their spirit. They don't believe in it. They don't have any faith in the company. They don't have any faith in what they're doing. Okay, so they rebel or quit. Okay, how many relationships have you been in your life that you were in the relationship, but you quit? You showed up, but you quit. You were there physically, but you weren't there emotionally. You were there in the body, but you weren't there in the mind. Okay, every day I pumped gas at 16 years old. Every single day I showed up physically, and I hated it, especially in the winter. This is back in the days that you pull up and somebody pump your gas. Remember, I was raised by a single mom. She taught me not one thing about cars. So people would show up and say, will you check my oil? And I'd open up the hood, check the transmission fluid. Because I had no idea what I was doing. I was terrible. And I hated it. Hated the job. Every day I went in, I hated it. I was there physically, but I'd quit. Okay? Second level is malicious obedience. The second level of commitment is malicious obedience. This is where I show up, but I undermine. I backstab. Right? I create problems. I create stress. I form allies. I talk about the boss. I talk about the company. I maliciously obey. So I show up, but I create a lot of problems. Okay? Third level of commitment is called willing compliance. Now, the problem with willing compliance is that you never do anything great in life if all you do is comply. Comply is I show up when you tell me to show up. I do what you tell me to do. I barely do it so I don't get fired. I mean, most companies in America, unfortunately, are right here at this level, willing compliance. We show up and we do just enough to get by. We do just enough not to get fired. We got no energy, no passion, no drive, no enthusiasm. This is why you have average companies. This is why less than 4% of small businesses will ever make $1 million of revenue. You're never going to be great if you just show up and say, what's the bare minimum for me to get by, right? Third level, will and compliance. Now we start to get into the good stuff. When you have a high prey drive and you have alignment of core values, you start to get into creative excitement. This is the fourth level of commitment. These are people that show up with ideas and energy and passion and creativity. They're trying to save the company money. They're trying to make the company money. Okay, and let me give you an example. The president of my company used to be in a different role. She was over customer service. She was over the kids division of my company. But on the weekend, she would send me ideas on ways we could save money or ways we could make money, formulas, strategies. She was looking at this. She was looking at ideas. She was constantly sending me ideas. And I like that so much. I promoted her to the president of the company because she was constantly thinking about how to better the company. She was constantly bringing ideas. She was working on her own time. She was coming up with ideas on the weekend, at night, in the morning. And the person I had in the president role was never doing that. She was never bringing me any ideas. She was never thinking on the weekend about how to make the company better. She was never saying, this is 3 ways we can save money or make money. It was, this is what you want to do. This is what I'm doing. And I like initiative. I reward people who take initiative. I like creative excitement. I do not like people that sit and wait till I tell them to do something. So when you think about it, the world rewards action. The world rewards movement, circulation. The world never rewards stagnation. So the fourth level of commitment is creative excitement. Fifth level of commitment is called heartfelt commitment. This is when you never question a person's motive. Their heart's in the right place. They want to be there. They're excited to be there. I mean, they're on fire. Their passion is high. Energy's good. All right. Sixth level of commitment and the highest form of commitment is synergy. Synergy is the combination of talents. It's where we are, every person is in their unique ability area. They are working in their special genius. They're bringing it every single day. When you build an environment like this, like I think about my championship team at Riverdale, that's what we had. We had very high levels of synergy. This person's talent, that person's talent, role playing. Everybody was doing what they should be doing. And that's how you win championship. That's how you build effective businesses. Okay. Now, when you understand the whole person theory, body, mind, heart, and spirit, you can very easily see that the lowest levels of commitment, you're there physically, but you're not there emotionally. You're not there mentally. You're not there spiritually. Okay. Now you know why people checks out. What happens when a person has a broken heart? They check out. What happens when a person has a broken spirit? They check out. What happens when a person's not learning? They get bored. What happens when a person doesn't have the discipline to do it? See what I'm saying? Like the whole person theory explains so many things, guys. If I was in the recruiting business, I'm telling you, I would be using all of these tools and mechanisms to decide who's going to make, who's not going to make, who has the desire, who has these characteristics. Now, let me stop there and ask if anybody has any questions. Harriet, do you have any questions? All right, you're still muted right now. All right. Let me see if I can unmute you. See if you can unmute yourself there. Okay, if you don't have any, that's okay. Anybody? There you go. There you go. You're good?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Nancy, what about you? You seem very focused and intense today.
I don't think so right now. I think it's all been pretty clear so far.
Okay, good. I'm doing a good job teaching it then if it's clear. Now, let's move in our next, 8 to 9 minutes. Let me show you the activators of prey drive. And this is very critical because there's 2 things I want to tell you. What is the cost of having bad managers in a business? Right? I want you to think about businesses that have bad managers. and they don't know how to recruit and attract. They don't know how to coach and develop. They don't know how to retain and optimize talent. Good talent gets wasted when you have a bad coach. The second thing is, what if managers knew how to activate the prey drive in their people? See, some of my biggest contracts with companies that I have, they bring me in to build high prey drive environments. They bring me in to teach their managers how to activate this drive in their people. And when we activate the drive in the people, we may see a 30, 40, 50% increase in a 1-year cycle if we just get the employee clicking at a high frequency. Okay, so you say, well, what tools do you use, coach? Well, here are the activators of prey drive. Number one, competition is an activator of prey drive. I believe in healthy competition. I do believe that competition can bring out the best in people and it can bring out the worst in people. Okay, some people use competition in the wrong way. I like to show where people are. So we make 80 phone calls a day in our office. We keep track of that. We track talk time. And we let people know on a board, it's showing how many calls our salespeople make, and it shows how many they made. And you say, well, why did you pick 80? I believe in the law of diffusion, which says that roughly 16% of people will be interested and open when you present an idea. Typically, you got to call 80 people just to get 10 on the phone. And out of the 10, only 16% may be open. That's 1.6 to 2 people, guys. Everybody see that? So you got to have a lot of volume. And that's what a lot of small business owners don't have. They don't have enough volume. Well, competition is, I want to win. I don't want to be last. I don't want to be second. I don't want to be third. I don't want to be fourth. Like, I want to be in an environment. And when you're recruiting a person, I believe the number one thing we can do is place people in environments where they can be successful. Okay. Think about my daughter. I pay for my daughter to get horse training because she loves horses. I paid for her to go to gymnastics. I paid for her to get trained in basketball. I don't want to just turn her loose to any old bozo. I want to put her in an environment where she can thrive. Well, the same is true of an employee. We need to place you in an environment where you can go. You can become something. You can grow. But competition is an activator. So I ask people, what's your number one activator? If they say, man, I love competition. I love a challenge. I love getting up every day and pursuing something. Okay. Second activator of prey drive is fear of loss. Fear can be a great motivator for people. Okay. Fear can be a great motivator. Now, this is interesting. Right now, there's X number of millions of people that are unemployed. 33 million people are unemployed. My mother-in-law, has some health issues, but she wanted to work and make a little extra money in addition to her Social Security, in addition to this. So she got a job delivering groceries at Instacart. And she got her first check the other day for $136. And she went to the grocery store and she shops and she delivers these groceries. And she said some of her buddies are making as much as $1,000 a week shopping for Instacart. Now, I know that's work. You got to go to the grocery store. You got to shop. You take it. You drop it off on people's doorstep. It is work. But let me ask you a question. Is there a lack of jobs in the country, or is there a lack of work ethic? Because if I didn't have any money, I'd go shopping for people. Now, you don't want me shopping for you, just to be honest with you, because I don't go to the grocery store much. But if I needed the money and I could make $1,000 extra a month just going to the grocery store and shopping, or $1,000 a week shopping for somebody else, you better believe I'd be taking that job at Instacart. Now, here's what I want to tell you. There is no shortage of opportunity in the world, not on planet Earth. There is a shortage of initiative. There is a shortage of effort. There's a shortage of creativity. There's a shortage of courage. That's the only shortage we got. There's no shortage of jobs. Like if people came to me right now and said, I can sell your services and I would like a commission if I sell anything, I'll take 100% commission job. If I sell $100,000 of stuff, I'd like a 10 or 20% commission. I'd say, let's go at it. Go for it. Go for it. You sell $100,000 of coaching, you can make 10 or 20,000 bucks. I'm all in. So there's no shortage of opportunity. Now, why is that tied to fear of loss? Fear is an interesting thing. It can be a motivator. It can be a tremendous motivator for people, especially if they fear losing something. If they fear losing work, if they fear losing money, if they fear losing their house, if they fear losing a relationship, it can motivate a person. This is my number one motivator. I actually wake up in the morning, have a healthy amount of fear. Don't want to lose what I built over 20 years. That motivates me. You know what it motivates me to do? Make more sales calls, work harder, show up, not get lazy or complacent. So the second activator of prey drive is fear of loss. Third activator of prey drive is exposure. Now, I grew up with that single mama who I love so much, and you guys are here in Tennessee, and you'll appreciate this. For the first 16 years of my life, we vacationed in one place, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And we drove to Gatlinburg, and we stayed at the Best Western, and we stayed at that Best Western because it had an indoor swimming pool. And I never got on an airplane. I never went to New York City. I don't even remember ever going to Nashville. We didn't go to New York City. We didn't go to Chicago. We didn't go to Miami. We didn't go to LA. I never saw anything. I wasn't exposed to anything. And then at 15 years old, I won a leadership contest, and my school shipped me off over to North Carolina to go to a leadership camp. And I was away from home. I was around other kids. I didn't have anybody there. For 1 week, I was at this camp out in the woods with these other kids learning about leadership. And I'm like, man, this is awesome, right? There's a big world out there. There's other opportunities. And so I was never exposed to things until I started 18, 19, 20. I started going places. And I remember the first time I went to New York City, and I saw how fast they move. People in New York City move 10 times faster than the ones in Nashville do. Okay. And here's the deal. When I came home, guess what? I thought bigger. I thought like, oh my gosh, there's a big world out there. Do you know why many people never reach their potential? Their prey drive is never activated. They never see anything. They're never exposed to anything. They've never driven a nice car. They've never lived in a nice house. They've never stayed in a nice hotel. They've never eaten a great steak. Do you know when I work with some of the companies that have low skill level workers, the number one thing we do for them is the very first thing we do is we take them to a nice steakhouse, and we show them what it's like eating at a nice steakhouse. You know how America typically does it? You do good, and we take you to the steakhouse. Here's what I said. Take them to the steakhouse first, and then maybe they'll do good. Everybody see that? Because they're exposed to something, right? I used to take my little basketball teams over to Murphy Center, and I used to watch other teams win championships. And I would tell my team one of these days, instead of us sitting in the stands watching them win, we're going to be on the floor and other people are going to be watching us, right? I exposed them. So one of the things I did, you can't see it, but I have this big gaudy championship ring, is I brought in fake rings for all the players to wear before we won a championship. I brought in rings for them to say, this is what it's going to feel like. I brought in a sample gold basketball for them to see. I used to take my players to San Diego, to San Antonio, to Florida, to Phoenix, Arizona. You know why? Many of them had never been on an airplane before. They had never been away from home before. Do you know how much bigger my players thought once they were exposed to things? Now, I have a condo on the 38th floor of the 505 building in Nashville. And it's the tallest building in Nashville. It's a new building. And I took my 7-year-old daughter down there the other day, and I just let her look at how big the city is from the 38th floor. And it overlooks Broadway. And I took her down to Broadway. Of course, nobody were down there. And we just walked up and down the streets. And she was like, Daddy, look at the lights. Why do they have all these lights? And why do they have all this stuff? And I said, sweetheart, they're trying to get attention to get business. And seeing things from the 38th floor, she would just sit there for hours looking out at the city at night on how much opportunities out there. And I said, you see how big the city is? You see how much opportunity there is? You see there's never a shortage of opportunity? That's what I'm teaching my 7-year-old daughter. That's exposure. That will activate her prey drive. Everybody see that? So the third activator is exposure. I got 2 more, and then I'll take questions to get you out of here. The next activator of prey drive is environment. And this is very critical. If I'm a high prey drive person and I have all this desire and all this passion and all this energy, but I'm in an environment that is not growing, that is stagnant, that is stuck, what do you think happens to my prey drive? How many of you have ever been highly motivated? Now, when I was a high school teacher, I was 21 years old. I just came out of college, and I wanted to change kids' lives. I loved kids. I wanted to be a coach so bad. And I went in there with all these ideas, and I was teaching, and they stuck me right beside a teacher who'd been teaching for 37 years and hated kids. And then they stuck me right beside a person that if they could get there at 7:30 in the morning, they'd roll in at 7:29. They did the bare minimum. And then at 2:41, they'd knock students down in the afternoon to get out the door. And I had all this energy and motivation. I was beside these 2 teachers that had no fire, no prey drive. And they suppressed my prey drive. As I started saying, why am I working this hard? Why do I care this much? Why do I do this? Because the environment is so average. Good people stuck in an average environment will play down versus play up. Good people stuck in an environment where you are pushed and challenged. Good people in an environment where you have to play every day will force you to be better. So my question is, what kind of environments do you create? What kind of environments do you put people in? Because big time people want to be in big time environments. Okay. Number 5, and the final piece. And I don't take this one lightly, but one activator of prey drive is embarrassment. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I don't mean that you want to personally embarrass people. That's not what I mean, because adults don't respond well to that, although some adults do. Here's what I'm saying. If you are playing well below your potential, and let's say Marianne Shanks has all this potential, but she's not reaching it. And I have a conversation with her and I say, Marianne, I see so much potential in you, but you are playing well below that potential. Like what I want Marianne to come to the conclusion is, I have so much more to give than what I'm giving. I have so much more capacity than what I'm showing. I have so much more potential than what I'm activating. And I am embarrassed by how I'm performing versus how I'm capable of performing. Okay. Now, I was on the phone with a guy this morning who believes he may make $2 billion during this period. And he believes he will actually make $2 billion during this cycle, because he invested in masks from 3M and he's selling all this supplies to hospitals. And he invested $10 million of his own money with 4 other people. And they put $74 million into a fund. And they went to 3M and they bought 20 million masks that they turn around and resold to hospitals. And he literally believes he may make $1 billion out of this. I don't know if he will or not. But I'm sitting there talking to him this morning on my way into work, and I'm thinking, that guy's not a bit smarter than me. If he makes $2 billion this year, why can't I make $2 billion? I'm embarrassed by where I'm playing at versus where he's playing at. Because here's the only thing that guy has. He's willing to take more risk than I am. It ain't that he's smarter than I am. He has a higher propensity for risk because he cashed out all $9 million he had in his bank account to bet on this one thing. See, I probably would never do that. So what does he have that I don't have? Not intelligence. He has more confidence than I do. And when you look at it at the end of the day, I kind of came in a little frustrated thinking, man, I'm tired of doing small deals with people. I'm ready to do the big deals. Okay. And so you need to be thinking, I'm tired of playing around in the little leagues. I'm ready to go pro. I'm ready to go from an amateur to a professional. I'm ready to leave my amateur desires behind, and I'm willing to go pro in my life and in my business. And I'm embarrassed. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying it as a motivator. As you see people out there doing things and you go, they're not any smarter than I am. They're not any more talented than I am. I should be doing more than what I'm capable of doing. Okay. Now, are there other activators of prey drive? Of course there are. Compensation is an activator of prey drive for some people. Recognition is an activator. Autonomy can be an activator. Purpose can be an activator. Mastery can be an activator. But as a coach, coaching people, I think when you talk about recruiting people, it's one thing to recruit a person. That's the first piece. Recruiting and attracting talent. Then placing them into an environment where that talent is coached and developed. That talent is retained and optimized. Those are the second components after the recruiting. Many people are terrible at recruiting. Not you guys, but I'm talking about business owners. They need somebody to help them. Would you say that, right or wrong? I can't tell you how many people I hired because they showed up early and they smiled and they turned out to be terrible employees. Okay. And I have such a big heart, and I think I can do so much with people that my compassion actually became a liability when I hired people, because I thought I could do something with anybody. Now we're much more scientific. Now we have other people that go through the process. Now we use personality profiling. Now we have another person that does the hiring. I ain't even in charge of hiring in my own company. Somebody else is, because I'm so bad at it. Okay. So let's close it out. Anybody have any questions before I close it out? Now, I do want to give you something. You guys have been troopers today. I want to give you, this is on my book on mindset called Inside the Mind of a Monster. If you want to get that book, I give it to you. I think the only thing you have to pay for is shipping. But I want to give you the book Inside the Mind of a Monster. Okay. And all you have to do is text monster ! To that number. And we give you a copy of the book. And that is a book about mindset. It's a great book right now. I know you guys are business owners and you're running businesses and you're trying to make it and do what you got to do. I think one of the number one things you can have in your life right now is a good coach. Okay. A person coaching you and a person teaching you strategy and technique on how to grow, on how to expand and how to take advantage. So we teach selling systems. We teach follow-up plans. We teach how to extract referrals. Most of the people I coach typically get a 30 to 45% increase in their business in a 1-year cycle. If they're doing what I'm teaching them, some of them get more. So if you've never considered a coach in your life and you want to do just a simple consultation with me, then I would encourage you, email me at coach@coachburt.com. I've got both of my sales reps on here today, Lakin Hibden and Eric White are with me. We'll schedule a strategy call and I'll just look at your business and give you some good counsel on what I think you can do to grow. But I believe everybody needs a good coach in life. A good coach can change everything for you. Okay. So I just really, really want to help you expand. And if I was there in person, it'd have been even better. All right. Sherry said her internet connection went unstable right after you said activator number 4. Number 5 was embarrassment. Number 5 was embarrassment, is that you personally believe you can do so much more. Okay, Sherry. Does anybody have any questions before I have to jump off here and do another one of these? I've only done 487 webinars over the last 2 weeks. I'm getting pretty good. John, you got a question?
Yes. I think that your message about activating Prey Drive would be useful for my client employers to hear regarding their people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a particular book of yours that I could feature in a newsletter article on that subject, and maybe couple that with an interview that you would do? I'm not going to be talking about live. I'll just send you the questions. You can write your answers. You know, and I could include that in an issue of a newsletter that I'll be doing in it's April, May, June, July.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So
What's the book you'd recommend I ought to read to prepare for that?
The book would be Inside the Mind of a Monster, the one that I'm giving you today.
Okay. All right.
Next that. Now, the book I'm writing on Prey Drive, I'm most likely going to get a national book deal on that deal. So I'm writing the book right now on Prey Drive, but it's going through my agent in New York City. And then you'll see that one in all the bookstores and airports. So that one will be coming out, but it could be a year before that book is out because it's a long process to get a book published nationally.
No, sure.
But yeah, what I'd like to do is I'd love to do the Q&A. So what I want you to do, John, is if you will just email us the information, just email it to coach@coachburt.com, coach@coachburt.com.
Okay.
And then we'll get you scheduled and we'll be happy. I could do an interview either way you want to do it, because it will be great. What I taught you today, every employer wants to know. They want to know how to get more out of their people.
No, sure they do.
So if you see strategies and tactics that we can help your companies, or I would even go as far as saying we would do a webinar for your companies. If you think it would be valuable for you to offer the webinar for the people that you work with, then we would be interested in doing that to get in front of those companies as well.
Would consider that. Second question: When do you anticipate your Prey Drive assessment being available and live?
I think that'll be a little bit. We're working with Tony Alessandra, who created the DISC profile, and we're working on how we can adapt that to a Prey Drive assessment that addresses the drive in a person. So I think we're probably 6 months to a year before that comes out. Got
it. Okay, fine. Thank you. That's all. I'm going to mute.
Good. All right, guys. Thank you. I saw where Adam Franklin said he was from Milan, Tennessee. So good. My wife's name was Natalie Garmany before she became Natalie Garmany Burt. Okay. So she's got a book out called Living with a Monster. So my coaching program is called Monster Producer. She's got a book called Living with a Monster. How do you live with an obsessed person? And it's a really, really, really good book. So I'm really proud of her. And she's about to have our baby boy here in a few weeks. So we're still open on names. So if you got a good name, we're open to it. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. If you need me, coach@coachburt.com, text that and get the code. Thank you for allowing me to be with you. I wish I could have been with you in person, and I promise I'll come back in the future and do it live for you, and it'll be a great experience, okay? So God bless you guys. Have a great day. Thank you. Hi, I'm Coach Michael Burt, and the #1 book that I've written over the last couple of years that could help you during these unusual times is a book I wrote called Inside the Mind of a Monster. Now, I want to give you that book. All you have to do is text 678-506-7543, because when you text that in, I'm going to give you a copy of my book, Inside the Mind of a Monster, and it's going to show you the habits and mindsets of top producers and how they attack every single day versus play defense. Don't you want to play offense? Get this book. I'm giving it to you, and I'm telling you, I'm going to turn you into a legendary creature.